So let's say that you've listened to all of this and you're interested, you're inspired. How are you then actually going to approach an application, either to a bootcamp or to a different sort of training provider? So I wanted to start by just showing you a little bit about what a typical application process might look like for either a bootcamp or a different kind of training course. So typically nowadays you would complete an application online. So this is where we're just asking for some basic details about yourself, to understand what your personal circumstances are, what kind of experience, education you have, or lack of, which is totally fine, as we said earlier. And this is where we're just checking that you are actually going to be eligible for a program. After that, we typically ask you to do a short task or activity for two reasons. Partly to understand your potential. So we're not looking for perfect scores because we're not looking for people who have done this before. So that would be very unfair of us to expect perfect scores. But we do want to see kind of what your potential is. The second reason we're doing it is for your benefit. So you can see whether this is something that you actually might be interested in. It's supposed to kind of give you a little bit of a flavour, a bit like the activities Ollie was doing earlier, a bit of a flavour of the course or the job or the sector. Because if you kind of do that and go, God, I hated that, then that might be quite a valuable learning for you. Maybe that's not the right program for you. After that, at Generation, but I know lots of other providers as well, ask you to attend an interview. So typically this would be an online interview nowadays. You would meet on Zoom or on a different video piece of software, and you chat to one of us at Generation, and we ask you a few questions about yourself and why you want to do the program. And here we're looking for your enthusiasm and your motivation, your excitement to do the program. Then hopefully, if all goes well, you get the offer. That is what we're aiming for at the end of the day. So we then would give you an offer, and we spend a week or two onboarding you onto the program. So giving you a bit of a crash course in some of the tech that you're going to use for the program, making sure we've got all your documents in order, like making sure you can access everything online without any bugs or any problems. So that's just the kind of induction part of the course, those the kind of 1 to 2 weeks beforehand. And then what are we looking for? So I've told you what we're not looking for already. We're not looking for necessarily lots and lots of qualifications or lots of professional experience. If you are someone that has a university degree, that is okay. That's totally fine. It doesn't mean you can't apply to one of these programs. But what we are looking for is enthusiasm and motivation. And what I mean by motivation is your reason for doing it. And I would encourage you to have a think about your reason for doing any kind of training program or any kind of initiative or job in the future. Because if you don't know why you want to do it, you're not going to be able to help us understand why you want to do it. So you need to understand what your reason is for wanting to do this. What is your particular motivation? We need commitment. For any training program, you're going to need some commitment. It's going to be hard at times. You heard our Generation graduates say, it's not always smooth sailing. Like, you're learning something new for the first time. That is going to feel a little bit like this sometimes. So you need to have the commitment there to stay the course when it gets a bit tough. Willingness to learn. So you need to be open to learning new things. And it sounds really, really obvious, but we don't always see that in people coming through the doors. You know, you need to have an open mind and be willing to learn both from the instructor, but also from your peers around you. And not just learn the technical skills, but be prepared to be challenged about kind of some of the traits or qualities that you might have. And growth is not always easy. So you have to have an openness and a willingness to that. And then honesty as well. So we need to understand what your circumstances are so we can support you to the best of our ability. So when you're having that chat with the mentor before you start a program and they're asking you about what support needs you might have, being dishonest about that because you're worried what we might think or what we might say or that we take the offer away isn't the right approach. We need to know what you're prepared to tell us or what you're comfortable telling us so that we can support you through the course to the best of our ability. And how do you actually show these qualities? So how do you turn those qualities into sort of attributes or traits that you demonstrate? So with enthusiasm, like thinking about how you present yourself in an interview, even if you're doing a talk like this. So if I was kind of up here and I was hiding behind the podium sort of like this and sort of stood like this, you would think, oh, she doesn't really want to be here. Like, why did she bother turning up today? So thinking about how you present yourself at interview, it doesn't mean you have to come in a suit or anything like that for a virtual interview. It just means sitting up and making eye contact and smiling and just looking like you want to be there, basically. And then giving every stage of the application process your best self. So trying as hard as you possibly can on each stage is going to show us that you really are very enthusiastic about this opportunity. And then motivation. So completing the application stages on time, it sounds really, really simple, but that shows us that you're motivated to do this, and you're showing us that you're motivated because you're going to be able to follow the instructions at the right times. And understanding, again, why you want to do this. So understanding your reason is really important so that you can help us understand your reason too. Commitment, so showing that you've researched the course. So being able to talk a little bit about the course in your interview is going to be really important. We want to know that you've spent at least a few minutes or half an hour or an hour just looking through the website, reading up on it, watching some of the videos. Show that you've done a little bit of research and you know what you're getting yourself into. And then also having a little think about how you're going to balance any sort of training course with life. You know, life happens. Everyone has commitments. Everyone has responsibilities. We need to hear that you've at least had a little think about how you're going to fit that course into your life. And that shows us this person's taking it seriously. They're committed. Then a willingness to learn is having a bit of an understanding. It doesn't have to be really developed, but a bit of an understanding about the areas that you might like to develop in. Will show that you've got that openness to learn. You've got that mindset that says, yes, I want to learn, I'm open. And just showing your excitement for the learning process as well as the job at the end. So yes, we're going to try our absolute hardest to get you into a job at the end. But that learning process in itself is an amazing opportunity. So showing that you're open to the learning process as well as the job at the end is going to help there. And then honesty. So I've mentioned this already, but just talking clearly and honestly through your life experiences and through your personal circumstances is going to help us support you. So I just thought I'd do a bit of a demonstration about what this looks like at interview. So I'm putting myself on blast here a little bit. It's bad lighting, but we see this a lot at interview. So in terms of presenting yourself well, there's lots of different ways you can do that. I'm in a hoodie in both pictures. You don't have to come in business smart wear to your virtual interview. You can look casual, you can look like yourself, but there's a real distinction here between someone who doesn't really want to be there and doesn't really care about this very cool free opportunity that they're being offered, and someone actually who is interested and eager to have a conversation and talk through their experiences. So super simple little tweaks there. All I did was switch the light on and sit up and smile a bit. But it makes the world of difference when people are meeting you for the first time. And then lastly then, some top tips for showing your best, particularly at interview or any sort of conversation you have when you're in an application process for a training course. It's finding a suitable space. So we know sometimes it's hard to find a quiet space at home. If you can't find a quiet space at home, have a think about where else you might be able to go in your community. A library is often a good shout. They're often in very large spaces that have internet access and quieter rooms to work from. Maybe a friend's house, maybe a family member's house. It doesn't have to just be at home. And come prepared. So make sure, as I said before, you've done a little bit of research on the training course that you're applying for to show that commitment and show that motivation. Come prepared to talk open and honestly as well. And have a think about what kind of questions you might be asked in an interview. There's loads of resources online that tell you or give you loads of great tips on what kind of questions might come up in an interview process. Now, we like to think that our interviews at Generation are a bit more like a two-way chat. We don't even really like calling them interviews because it can be a bit daunting. It can put people off. And we know the word interview can be a bit scary. But really, it's just a chat about you and your experiences. And you can't really get that wrong. There's no right answer to it. So be open and engaged. So again, be open to the fact that someone is going to ask you some questions. Try not to be too closed off from that and look engaged, as we said a second ago. And show that you want the opportunity. Enthusiasm goes a really, really long way. If we sense that you're excited by this opportunity, you've got a much better chance of getting onto a program. And that doesn't just go for generation programs, that goes for every sort of program. And a few things not to do. So hide your experiences, because then we can't support you as best we can to the best of our ability. Just talking about the money. So that's an odd one. Now look, money's not bad. We all want money. We all like money. I like being able to pay my bills. All right, that is a really, really big reason that I have a job and that I have a career. However, we want to know that you're not just motivated by that at the end, because these are, as we said before, quite intensive learning processes. They're not necessarily the easiest route, and they're not designed to be. They're meant to be accessible to everybody, but they're not always going to be super easy. So if you're only motivated by the bit at the end, you're going to find the middle bit really tough. So you do need to be enthusiastic and excited about that middle part before you get to the money at the end. And don't get me wrong, we like the money at the end. I showed you the income uplift stat at the start. We like that. And there's nothing wrong with women liking money and talking about money either. But think about what else motivates you. And very obviously, I suppose, seeming like you don't want to be there. So we've given you a few examples of what that might look like, and think about what it would have felt like for you sat in the room if our panelists kind of looked like I did on the left-hand side of the screen there. What would that have felt like for you in the room? You'd have felt a bit awkward. It's like, oh God, okay, am I intruding here? You know, think about how you're going to come across to the person talking to you.